Hey everyone. Today on the podcast is going to be something a little different. I've never done this before, but sometimes you have to do things out of necessity. As we all know, the holiday season just passed, and people's lives that are hectic become even more hectic during that time. And because of this hecticness, a couple of the interviews that I had scheduled, those people had to rearrange those times. And what that did was leave me without anything for this week. And my hectic life didn't allow me to produce something in time for this week. So, what I'm doing is I am posting, or I guess I should say reposting, an older podcast that I did back in August. What I did was I went to iTunes and I checked to see what was one of my most popular downloads. And actually, to my surprise, it was a wine writer's wrap up that I did in August about how much is too much money for wine. And the premise of the podcast began because back during that time, Liber Pater declared that he was going to produce 550 bottles of his 2015 vintage and release each bottle for $34,000. And we were talking about how much would we pay for this wine. And seriously, you know, I mean, I can't afford that, but I sure as heck would like to give that wine a taste because I can't imagine it being worth $34,000. But with that being said, if you have already heard this podcast, thank you very much for being a listener for such a long time. And if you haven't, well, here's one of my most popular podcasts. Sláinte. Thanks for listening to Exploring the Wine Glass podcast, the podcast for people who love wine. I'm Lori Budd, a UC Davis winemaking program and WSET Level 2 graduate. You can find Exploring the Wine Glass on all the socials as well as your favorite podcast catchers. If you haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time. I promise I'll never tell you what to drink, but I'll always share what's in my glass. Today on the podcast, I got together with some wine writing friends to discuss a topic in the wine world that has been hitting the headlines quite a bit lately. How much is too much to spend on a bottle of wine? The topic was triggered by the announcement of Liber Pater declaring that he was going to produce 550 bottles of his 2015 vintage and release them for $34,000 a bottle. Now, this may be a price tag that the majority of us couldn't even contemplate spending. But then on Instagram, a post by Amber Burke of Wine Travel Eats posted a photo of a bottle of Nickel and Nickel with a hefty price tag of $185. This triggered a rather long back-to-back debate over whether the wine was worth it. With that, I opted to get my friends together and have a little heart-to-heart about what we are willing to spend on a bottle of wine, and if any bottle is ever worth $34,000. Sláinte. Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of Wine Writers Wrap Up. This episode kind of popped up spur of the moment because of an Instagram conversation that was going on that was started actually by Amber here of Wine Travel Eats. And Anatoly had jumped in, and a whole bunch of people were jumping in onto the conversation. And I think part of the conversation stemmed off of the wonderful news this past week of the $34,000 bottle of wine. But so what we're going to do is we are talking about what is the cost of wine value to you. What are you willing to pay for a bottle of wine? So before we get into the conversation, I'm going to have everybody do a little introduction of themselves. So Amber, I don't really know why, but you're the big screen right now, so go ahead.
Wow, yay! Okay, so hi, I'm Amber. I write for Wine Travel Eats. My husband and I have a blog, and we write about wine basically, because we're located semi-Napa, in a suburb of Napa, I guess you could say, and we write mostly about Napa wines, although we write about whatever we can get a hold of. How's that?
That sounds good to me. And Michael?
I'm Michael Kelly, and I have a website called California Wines and Wineries. I do daily blogs on wine reviews on Facebook called California Wines and Wineries, and do judging and a few other things. And I try to focus primarily on California, up in the state of California, and occasionally go rogue and go something in Croatia or Italy or Spain, but mostly focus on California.
Awesome. And Anatoly.
Hello. So I'm Anatoly Levin. I'm writing a blog called Tocavino, even though I don't have the Italian heritage. So Amber is in Napa. I live in Connecticut, and I cannot, unfortunately, write about Connecticut wines. So I do write about any wines, and I write about wines because I love them. That's the only reason. So I love wine. So I don't have any particular preferences. I have pretty much a worldwide view when it comes to wine. So I'm happy to support any wine-related conversation.
That's awesome. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Lori. I'm your host tonight, and my husband and I own Gersino Wines. We produce award-winning Cabernet Franc in Paso Robles, along with a rosé of Syrah. And I have just separated the blog and podcast. So not only are we Gersino Wines, but I am also exploring the wine glass. So you can find me at both of those channels. So Anatoly and I are the only two people who are drinking, but we'll do a little cheers to everybody.
Cheers.
So a little slancha to everybody. All right.
Cheers.
Slancha.
Okay. All right. So last week, the news broke that Liber Pater, which is one of the most infamous wineries, announced that its 2015 vintage will hit the shelves with a price tag of $34,000 a bottle. So that was the first thing. The second thing, as I started, that I mentioned was the conversation of Amber on Instagram with the Wine Travel Eats, and she actually posted a bottle of Nickel and Nickel wine, which goes for, according to $34,000, only a mere $185. So still very expensive, but very different than $34,000. So I thought that we would start off with the $34,000 bottle of wine first. And this is what Drinks Business had to say. Loic Pasquet, the winemaking wizard behind Liber Pater, is known for using ancient techniques such as cultivating ancient grape varietals and ditching oak barrels to age his wine in amphorae. But Pasquet is also known as a convicted fraudster. Several years ago, he was found guilty of falsifying receipts to obtain more than $600,000 worth of grants from the EU. The world of high-end wine is filled with intrigue. Pasquet has been sued several times for violating winemaking rules and appealed most of these lawsuits, and only some of them were successful. And Winey Enemies destroyed 500 of his vines in 2016. Liber Pater will produce only 550 bottles of this 215 vintage. There will be no 216 vintage, thanks to the vine vandals, and no 2017 vintage because his vines were frost damaged. But the vineyards in 2018 is expected to sell for even higher price than his current wine. So my first question is, first of all, $34,000 for a bottle of wine. Anybody even contemplating this?
There are no words. There are no words. I mean, I have bottles of wine in my cellar. I'm not going to lie. I have a couple of bottles that are in the $3,000 mark, but they didn't start out like that. That's not from day one. They age, they gain value. There you go. There's nobody that I know that goes out and spends that kind of money on something that you consume, and a totally unknown quantity there. And I don't know. I think it's a little crazy. That's just me, though.
Anybody else? Anybody else flipping a $34,000 bill this year?
No.
I'm sorry. Go, Michael. I'll say what I want to say, but later.
Well, I told you we're at a restaurant in London, and I wanted a certain wine, and they offered me this one wine. And I said, well, no, we have a misunderstanding. And he said, well, this one. I said, we still have a misunderstanding. My wife was very concerned what she was. And I said, well, the one wine was $17,000 and the other was $12,000. And we ended up $900 bottle of wine in the evening. But it was just as crazy, trying to get you to buy these ridiculous price wines. And the $900 bottle of wine didn't compare to anything that was $100 out of Napa in the end.
Right. Anatoly?
Okay, so I to begin with, I have to admit I never heard of this winery. I never heard of that person. So I don't care what they think about themselves. I mean, I'm sorry, this is bullcrap, okay? Whatever. They can price it at anything they want. The people who love wine will not buy this wine, okay? The people who have to brag, look what I got, yeah, they will buy this wine, but, that is a category. I don't think we should be even talking about that category, because this is not all of us here because we love wine. Okay, this has nothing to do with loving wine. And I would, based on what I read, I would simply guess that this guy is just a fraudster, and whatever he does, it doesn't matter. I don't understand what kind of marketing was done to support this type of price, because I understand that DRC would release a $34,000 bottle, which they don't, or Screaming Eagle at least, or I don't know, our friend in the Petrus, I would get it, but because at least they have a cloud. I don't know who this person is, but anyway, these numbers, they have nothing to do with real wine lovers. So and then price is very complicated, right? So it's price is a number which someone is willing to pay. So if he can sell those wines at that price, then good luck to him. But this is not the most expensive which was released. Penfolds, if you remember, they released, it was their single block. There was the Kalimna something, which was the oldest. This is the oldest continuously harvested plot of Cabernet Sauvignon in the world, and they created wine called the Capsule. If I'm not mistaken, it was released at $180,000, but they made no. But I think the major cost was the capsule itself. You can research, you can look for Penfolds wines, and it was some crazy mechanical apparatus which was made specifically to host this wine. So. That I understand. This is more like work of art, and you just buy in to own those, like one of those art objects. It's somewhat akin buying a Monet painting. This is just different. This is totally different category, and I understand that one. And they did not produce like thousands of bottles. Their total production, I think, was not in the hundreds maybe. So I get it. That's different. But this, no, this I do not get.
So here's my question. $34,000. I think the people who are going to be buying this $34,000 bottle of wine, I agree, Anatolia. I don't think there's so much wine lovers as I want to brag. I have a bottle that costs $34,000. They aren't going to know what is in that bottle, and the odds are they're never going to open that bottle anyway, because it's like, you've got the DC comic dude that's in his box. Once you open the box, it means nothing if you collect that stuff, right? So I think it has to do with that. But I also have the other issue with going on is, like you brought up the Monet, okay? You brought up the Monet. Well, my comment is, you know what, before I buy a Monet, I am making sure that that Monet is authentic, right? Now, this guy has been arrested multiple times and is proven multiple times to be fraud. So why am I paying $34,000 for basically a felon to give me wine, right? So that's an issue I have also. And his saying of why this wine is so wonderful and worth $34,000 is that the vines are pre-phylloxera vines. I had read that someplace else, or actually I think I heard that on the We Like Drinking podcast, that he's claiming that it's pre-phylloxera vines. Well, you know what? There's other places that have pre-phylloxera vines also and are not making it $34,000. My biggest thought when I read this the first time was, all right, here's a guy who lost vines, who's been arrested, has lost now 3 vintages. He's trying to make up all of his money for those lost vintages in this one vintage. That's my thought process. But people are going to buy it because people want to be that person who has number 500 or number 1 of 550 bottles. That's my thought.
It would be very interesting. So you can buy his wines currently.
Right, for $4,000. $4,000,
$4,200, $4,600. I still, again, I don't understand. I truly don't understand. I wanna hear from someone who bought his wines. Like, I really want to hear why they buy this wine, because I do understand why you buy Latour, why you buy Lafite, why you buy Rothschild. I get it, but this.
Right, because they have a track record of having incredible wines. And Amber, as you were saying, that bottle that you have, or those bottles that you have in your cellar that are multi-$1,000 bottles, on a given average, what were those bottles when you bought them?
Yeah, they were at the $150 mark, and and now they're at several $1,000 mark, and that's what you do when you're curating wine and you have the ability to be lucky enough to be able to store it and cellar it, and you get the benefits of being able to do that and not having somebody else, take that cost on for you. So that's fantastic. But for somebody to say, here you go, straight out of the horse is, $34,000 wine, completely unknown. No, I mean, Chateau Lafite, maybe I would say, well, I would trust in them to spend that kind of money on a bottle of wine. Even for a regular person like myself, I live, Napa, and Napa prices, I'm having to, the conversation came about to where why it came about was, what's the normal person? How can they afford to pay $185 for a bottle of wine? This is no longer, I have a wine that I absolutely love. I've been drinking it for many years, and the price has literally tripled on the price of wine in just over 5 years. Why is that these wines are costing so much money? Because they're Napa? I mean, because a couple years ago I went to Italy and I bought bottles of wine for $7 a bottle. I shipped them. The total cost for me to ship them ended up to be $18 a bottle, and I swear to God I would put those bottles against stuff that I would pay $100 a bottle here in Napa for. You have to sit there and wonder, what the heck, man? They're just. It's just kind of one of those things. You have to just shake your head and think, where is the value here? All these people in life, you have to think about, your retirement and all the things that you're going to do. You're going to take that money and buy a bottle of wine. So how many people are going to be able to buy a $185 bottle for their Tuesday night sip?
Right.
Not very. So that means that these people are just buying one bottle or two bottles, or maybe they buy a case. But that's going to be for their special occasion wine, right? That's not going to be for something. You have a dinner party, something, an anniversary or whatever. But those people aren't going to come back and buy year after year after year after year, because it's so not affordable just to even drink a decent bottle of wine.
Yeah, well, that goes back to what I'm saying about this guy is he's losing 3 vintages worth of wine. If he can sell 550 bottles at $34,000, now math is not my forte, but I'm going to say that pretty much makes up for a lot of those vintages he's missing. And, on one side, I think it's outrageous. I think it's completely insane that this man has any literally balls to do this. But on the other side, he's going to sell 550 bottles of these.
Congratulations, good on you.
Right.
There's a sucker born every minute.
Absolutely. He is going to sell these because you are going to get the people, like Anatoly said, who are not true wine lovers, who just want to say, ha-ha, look what I have, And they're going to, and to them, I mean, I don't know what these people do, but to them, $34,000 is probably equivalent to our $100.
Maybe.
Yeah, it is, but I don't think he will necessarily sell this. I don't know what this guy's thinking. I don't believe he has the standing of which can support these prices. Whatever he declares himself to be, it doesn't matter.
Well, I think the fraudulent activities have a lot to do against him. I mean...
Yeah, but, Lori, it's a fluke.
Do their research and know that there's all these...
I think people who spend money like that, they actually do.
You think so?
Yeah, you can listen. Yeah, there's a lot of things you can spend money on in a bragging purposes. What's the point of bragging with something which nobody ever heard of? You're gonna have to spend half of the time explaining. If you show your friend a Ferrari, that's self-evident. Okay, that's a Ferrari. When you're gonna show this bottle, they're gonna go, and when you're gonna say you spent $25,000, they're gonna say, okay, he's probably lost it. So I'm not sure. Whatever his logic is, Lori, let's leave this thing. No, seriously, this is a fluke. This is not what Amber is talking about. Is a lot more. It's a lot closer to home because
Correct.
We all have wines which we would like to drink and which we would like to afford, and that becomes a challenge. So this is an interesting discussion.
Michael, would you like to say anything about this before we move on?
Yeah, so what I had an experience recently in Napa, and what happened in Napa was I was meeting with the owner, winemaker of a very large, I'm going to leave his name out because it was not a good meeting, but he finally said, well, you're tasting my normal range of wines, which are $100 to $200. But he says if you really want to taste the good stuff, it's $500 to $5,000. But he says, but my $5,000 bottle of wine, I refuse to sell it to Robert Parker because I don't like him. And so he says, but you can buy as many of these $5,000 bottles of wine so that you can have wine that I wouldn't sell to Robert Parker. So he was looking for like the ego factor.
Wow. What happens if you're a huge Robert Parker fan?
Well, I'm not a huge fan, but I didn't buy the wine.
Really? You didn't buy a case or two? I'm disappointed.
No. Yeah.
Really? So, this is a very interesting, Michael, because unless it's like I don't know, Harlan, Colgan, Screaming Eagle, who can charge $5,000? I don't care who he refuses to sell the wine to.
Right.
That's totally that's his whatever. That's a sales tactics, but.
I think of it as a sales tactic for the guy's ego.
So
yeah, of course.
Michael, going back to that without saying who that is, how many bottles of this $5,000, I'm assuming Cabernet Sauvignon?
Yeah.
Okay.
Cabernet.
How much
What
of
else?
this? How much of this $5,000 does he produce? How many bottles?
I did not get into the specifics with him on that one.
Okay.
I mean, I already was kind of put off by
The
his
comment.
personality and everything, so I didn't even pursue that portion of the conversation.
Right, which I guess I wouldn't have either, but my thought, see, now the Jersey girl would have come out of me. And I would have had to, like, really, seriously, I would have called him on it. So you have a $5,000 bottle of wine. If Robert Parker wanted to buy a case of this $5,000 bottle of wine, you're going to tell me you're not going to sell it to him? Right, because you know what I'm saying?
Lori, if he can sell $5,000 bottle of wine, $5,000 bottle of wine, maybe he will say no if there are other people who are willing to buy it.
I don't know. You know what? I don't care who buys my wine, right? I don't care who buys it. If you want to taste my wine and you like Dracaena Wine's Cabernet Franc or Rosé of Syrah, I don't care who you are. I don't care what you do. I don't care if you take it home and feed it to your dog, right? If you like the wine, I'm happy to sell it to you, okay? That's because I'm in a business. So if this man says he can make $5,000 per bottle of wine, I don't know how many people are walking into that wine tasting room and saying, give me that bottle of $5,000 wine. So I have to think that.
Was that a regular size bottle?
Yeah, it's a rate $750. The GM just left the company, and he and I are friends. I'm going to ask him how many bottles were produced for the $5,000 bottles of wine.
That
would be very interesting.
You want to know what I think? I think the reason why he won't sell it to Robert Parker is because he submitted it to Robert Parker and Robert Parker gave it a bad review. That's why I think he won't sell it to Robert Parker. Because
it's all a game.
If you can get $5,000, you take $5,000. But hey.
And maybe that's coming back to what we're talking about here. It's the demand of the market. What can you get? What can you sell your product for and get people? So, it's the whole exclusive thing and making the wine where people, it's a needful thing,
Right.
Just look at us women with the handbags and stuff for a while. Everybody was all about, I have to have my Chanel or I have to have my Gucci or my whatever it was.
Not me. I don't own I'm very proud to say I do not own a single pocketbook. I do not.
It becomes a needful thing because you want to be a member of that exclusive club, and that's why a lot of these wineries have wine clubs.
Right.
They will not give you their best wine unless you join their wine club and are going to buy 12 bottles. So what if you like only one of their wines and you really love their wine? You are out of luck because you're not going to be able to get it.
Right. I agree. All right. So let's move on to the back down to semi-earth wine here. And so this was Tuesday, I think, so rather recently. Amber wrote on Instagram at Nickel and Nickel Winery, I'm in love with these wines. This 2014 Oakville Cab is smooth and supple on the palate, rich and flavorful. This is an unpretentious sip at $185. Okay, Tapocine
Vino.
Thank you. Indeed, it's a nice wine. How many bottles of something just as good could you get for the same price? And then Anatoly jumped in with definitely an interesting conversation about free market and what the market could bear. Would be much easier with a glass of wine in hand, face to face. I was told by someone that complaining about high prices is a sign of old age. Maybe. Okay, so I love you, Anatoly. I do. But I truly believe everything is cyclical, and whatever comes up goes down. We are simply living in a moment in time when the wine is at the top of the hype and everything seems to be endlessly going up. If anything will jolt this economy, the wine will be one of the primary victims. However, we shouldn't underestimate the effect of China. Bottom line, I have no idea, but I guarantee you will find something good to drink at a reasonable price. For example, friend sells Trentadoc for $13. Okay, and I think that is a great value. Trentadoc is lovely. Okay, and then Amber, say the name again.
Tapocine Vino.
Okay.
Yeah.
We are in an interesting vortex here in California wine country. The real estate in Napa Valley is extremely expensive. 1 acre of undeveloped property on the valley floor is at least $500,000. And you have to grow the vines, build out the winery property, and the minimum acreage for a winery is 10 acres. You do the math. On top of that, with over 500 wineries in the valley, the competition is extremely stiff, so marketing expenses are also very high. The cost to pick grapes is now far over the minimum wage, has competition for labor, has gotten very competitive for other crops. Napa wineries aren't making as much on a bottle of his wine as would otherwise appear. Now, with that being said, I'm going to give a little insight from an anonymous tipper who prefers to remain unnamed. Okay, so COGS, which is cost of goods. Okay, generally speaking, COGS typically cost no more than, and this I really thought was over the top, $20 for a bottle for a premium wine. Now, I just tasted a wine that bottle weighed like 4 pounds, I swear. I was like, the wine was exceptional in it, but the bottle was so heavy and it had a beautiful placard on it that was out of the bottle. Like it was an amazing bottle. That bottle might cost $20, okay? And that includes everything that goes into it. So basically, if you can figure that a bottle that costs $19, the average price, right, that somebody's going to go buy, the COGS is actually less than $4. So the cost of goods is less than $4. So a wine that's charging $400 or whatever, bullshit is what's being called there, okay? But with that being said, I tasted that Nickel and Nickel wine, okay? I thought it was an exceptional wine. I enjoyed it thoroughly. However, I'm not dishing out $185 for that bottle of wine. I'd be more apt to dish out $185 for a different wine. So with that being said, go at it. And now, a word from our sponsor. Did you know that Dracaena Wines now has a wine club? We named it the Chalk Club. Draco is on our label, but Vegas was getting a little jealous, so we decided he deserved to be our club spokesdog. In Las Vegas, betting chalk means that you are betting on all of the favorites. We are betting that we are one of your favorite wineries, so we thought the name was apropos. The club is simple, yet a bit different than most. When you wager on us, we will ship you 3 bottles of wine twice a year, once in April and once in September. You can choose all red or mix of red and rosé. You immediately receive 15% off of all your wine purchases throughout the year, but what makes our club stand out is the progressive discount. Let your club membership ride into the next year. Your discount increases. Each year you parlay your membership, you receive an additional 5% off up to a planned maximum of 25%. Your club shipments are discounted to a flat $15, plus we'll cover your club shipping cost for your second shipment. That's $15 house money in a sure bet for you. So please head to our website, dracenawines.com, and find out all of the benefits of joining the Chalk Club and how to sign up. We've stacked the odds so that you can get our award-winning wines without breaking the bank.
Okay, well, I guess I'll come back to this whole thing about, what can people really afford, and what level do you find comfortable to buy? And I've noticed living here in Napa and being surrounded by the Napa prices. I mean, I used to spend, I don't know, $20, $40 a bottle, and I was comfortable either drinking it, my husband and I just wanting a nice glass of wine, drinking it, or we were happy to share it with friends who weren't necessarily the biggest wine connoisseurs or whatever. Now I find myself starting at the $100 bottles of wine, purchasing bottles of wine like that, because we're always in Napa, we're always at the tasting rooms, and we try and be good and purchase stuff for our cellar. But it's getting to the point where I'm looking at this wine and I'm thinking to myself, what's the value? How much more enjoyment are we getting on a $100 bottle of wine than a $20 bottle of wine that I could get in the grocery store, made by the same winemaker? Yes, maybe it's using oak chips and not using a barrel, but I'm going to have to think about that. What else could I be doing with that money in the difference between $100 and $20? How much more enjoyment am I going to get out of it? And really, on a Tuesday night, am I really going to want to open up a bottle of $100 bottle of wine just for myself to sit and watch Netflix and enjoy myself? I mean, that's where it's concerning to me that I'm getting almost the price of the wine. I'm getting to the point where I am getting desensitized, I guess, to it.
Right.
By the way, which one was it? Nickel and Nickel. What?
Nickel. It was a Cabernet. I'm sorry, I don't have
the Salinger Vineyard, or
the Stellan.
Yeah.
Stellan Vineyard, yes.
So, for me, I do, and I hope my wife will never see this recording, because yes, I do buy expensive, not in the thousands range, no, I don't go that far, but I do buy expensive wines, but those are, for instance, No Girls, right? So No Girls is not a cheap wine. This is Christophe Baron, one of his projects, or Cayuse, Lori, you know Cayuse. Mm-hmm. So, but the fact of the matter is that, yes, I'm on a mailing list and I pay those, $75, $80 per bottle. with shipping, it pushes 100 shipping taxes, whatever. But the fact of the matter is very simple. There is no place I can go to and buy that same wine for less.
Right.
It's just impossible.
Well, that's because Christoph is brilliant and doesn't let his wines out.
No. That's not my point. I agree with you. But my point is, this is where I'm really willing to pay this money, because I appreciate the quality of the wine, and I have no other options. If I want to drink this wine, that's the only way,
Right.
But otherwise, in a lot of cases, the prices at many wineries are simply unreasonable. At the same time, you go, Lori, Brotherhood, right? Brotherhood Winery.
Mm-hmm.
You go to Brotherhood, you buy at the winery, you buy excellent wines for $12 to $15. They're very drinkable. They're very decent wines. This is the price. I mean, nice and easy. And they also get tons of tourists. These prices are so complicated.
Well, go ahead, Amber.
I'm going to put one thing in right here, is that when I was in Paso Robles, I was noticing they're still charging, a lot of the wineries are still charging well over $100 for a bottle of wine in Paso Robles, and they aren't Napa. There was in Temecula,
Really?
I found bottles that were way over $100 a bottle in Temecula. When I was in, there was plenty of wine that we saw in Walla Walla. I mean, really, that were over $100 a bottle. And I was thinking to myself, really? People are saying, oh, well, it's Napa. Napa's the problem. Napa's the one that has the $100 bottles of wine. And I'm thinking, no, it's not just here. It's getting to be everywhere.
Okay, so I'm gonna do a little backtrack on that, because Amber, I know you probably don't want to say who it is or whatever online, but I don't know very many places in Paso that sell $100 bottles of wine. I will say I've been seeing them creep up, and I see them being like $80. Last week, Mike and I were in, and we were tasting around, places that, we always go to our favorites, and then I force him to always pick one out of a hat, and let's try something new, right? We have almost 300 wineries now in Paso, and I don't want to keep going back to the same 20 type thing, right? So we were at a winery, and I was tasting, and I was like, oh, this is really good. And he pointed at the price, nonchalantly pointed at the price, and it was $85. And I was like, well, no, it's not that good. Now, I know what the prices of fruit cost in Paso. And one of the things that I keep getting told by Napa, Sonoma people, is that I charge too little for my Cab Franc. I think what we charge for our wine, and when you compare it to some other wines, and Amber, you know which ones I'm talking about, that are double my price, they're not paying actually any more for that fruit than I'm paying, because Cab Franc has increased in Paso significantly more than it has increased in Napa, whatever. So they're not paying more for the fruit than I'm paying. They're charging double the amount. They're getting that dollar amount for that wine because they're Napa. I mean, their prices are high. They're, for land. I get that. People in America, people outside of America are Napa Sonoma, right? They're going to come wine tasting in America. They're coming to Napa Sonoma. They're not coming to Paso. They're not coming to Temecula, right?
Michael, your turn.
All right. Well, so I'm going to go back. I'm going to backtrack a little bit about China. You're going to get your wines cheaper in China. I've been to China. I've had the wines at Great China Wall. I've had the wines at Chateau Wazoo, or whatever the winery was over there. And it's going to be a long time before China gets really good wines, in my opinion. You're not going to find, it's not like the United States RCA making a transistor radio and then China makes it for half the price. you're not going to get the same quality of radio. It took 40, 50 years to get the electronics industry to be the same in China as it is in the States. And it's going to take 40 or 50 years to get the wines to get, if possible, because of terroir, will it get to be equal to the United States? So that's just a comment there.
No, but Michael, hold on. If you're referring to, for instance, what I meant by China, I simply meant that I didn't mean that China makes wine. I meant, I know they do, but I simply meant that they buy wine. This is the, like, for instance, this is part of the reason for wine and especially bourbon and scotch,
Right.
bourbon for sure. Prices going high astronomically is because China found their new appetite for that stuff, and or look at the Japanese whiskey. I'm sorry, I don't mean to like get it off track, but this is the same with China. So because they buy this stuff.
Yeah, so that's just a worldwide demand based on supply, and that's going to raise the price up. So I understand that. Okay. So the other comment, as far as wine goes, I think I'm very much like Amber, where I have bought wines for 40 years and have stored them, and next thing you know, your inventory is now worth triple what it was when you had your purchase price. But at some point, you have to enjoy the wine. You
Right.
can either be a collector and not enjoy it, or you can enjoy it. And it's all computerized. It comes up and says, this year you're going to drink this amount of wine. I just grab a bottle on my list that says, go drink it. I grab it. We're going down we go down to the local club and we have a hamburger, and we say, that was really good wine. And I go, yeah, it really was. And I go back and I look at it, and I paid, $85 for it from Larkmead or someplace like that, or O'Shaughnessy or Outpost, and it was $85. I go look for a replacement cost, and Amber, to your point, it's $185, $200. Prodigy, it's $250 to replace that same wine. And then you go, well, gee, maybe I should have some. When the neighbors come over, I should have something that's a little bit more reasonable. So when the neighbors walk in, I can just simply say, do you like Chardonnay? And they go, yeah. And I like it with one ice cube in it. Well, I have just the Chardonnay for you with one ice cube in it. I think that's my cheapest Chardonnay. And I said, this is a lovely Chardonnay from Lori from the Central Coast, Miracle Lane, San Lucia Highlands. I get it for like $15 a bottle. It's listed at $30 or $32. I said, here, go ahead, have this wine. Put an ice cube. You want two? I'll give you 2 ice cubes, and you're done. And but if I have somebody from our wine society up here who comes over for dinner, we purposely bring in a bottle of wine, but realizing I'm not going to spend $185, $250 or more for a replacement cost. When you're retired and you're on a fixed income, you're not going to spend that kind of money. To your point, you're not going to, and I think. Anatoly, you said it was you start complaining about price when you get old. Well, I'm getting to that point. I think that's the same. I agree with that. That was a good line, I thought.
I think that in just an overall statement, everybody has a price-value ratio in their head of what they like. And I think for wine lovers, for anything, price value, am I willing to spend $10 on something, or am I willing to spend $100 on something else, price value. But I think for wine lovers, you also have a varietal price value point, like, are you willing, in your head, in our society anyway, I think you're paying more for a cab than you are for a Syrah, so you have that. But everybody's economical stature is different. So going back to the $34,000 wine, like I said, that might be equivalent to somebody dropping $34,000 might be equivalent to us dropping $100. So I think that's where it really comes down to. Am I willing to spend $185 to have a good night, to sit down and enjoy the evening with Mike and friends and whatever? Or am I not willing to spend $180? I mean, you can go to a baseball game now and spend $185 and eat a freaking popcorn and a crap beer. So I think that has a lot to do with it. What are you willing to spend for enjoyment?
Well, okay, I'll give you to that point, but last year I was at a conference. Actually, I was at a conference, and somebody pulls up this, and we're drinking lots and lots of different wines from different Napa producers, and we get poured some Sauvignon Blanc. And so we're drinking, and we're like, okay, this is very nice, very, very palatable. You know, I'm not a big fan of that. It's very rare that I like it, unless it's French. And so the guy was leaving, the rep was leaving, and he said to my friend, hey, you like this wine so much, I'm going to give you a bottle. And he says, oh, great. And he says, yeah, you won the big deal. It was $90 for the bottle of Sauvignon Blanc.
Yeah, that's so,
I was
yeah.
like, wow, really? And so, and it just so happened that a few weeks later, I was doing a press tour and toured that winery, and yes, indeed, $90. Now, the wine was good.
I know this winery. The guy is a doctor, right?
No, he comes from a very, very famous family, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. No, but by the way, when I think someone we were talking about, like when we said $5,000 or whatever, the very expensive, and it has to be Cabernet Sauvignon. You know that the most expensive wine from Screaming Eagle is Sauvignon Blanc.
No, I did not know that.
Yes, it is.
Is it really?
Okay. Look it up. Yes, it's a lot more expensive than their cap. It's like, and don't forget that the most expensive DRC wine is also white, Montrachet. It's most expensive DRC wine. So this is be careful with that stuff. But Screaming Eagle Sauvignon Blanc is the most expensive wine in general. I think this is most expensive produced in the U.S. But,
wow, I did not know that. I did not know that.
Yeah.
But
well, search online. You're going to find it.
It just goes back to, you know what? More power to them.
Yeah. No,
you know,
but that's
I mean,
Screaming Eagle. They produce 200 cases, whatever, 100 cases. They give it one bottle per person. That's it. People will buy it, of course, because this is unique. This is different. This is nevertheless, this is people who can buy Screaming Eagle. This is a different category of people for whatever reason. But, you know, I can tell you, but you say Sauvignon Blanc, right? So, Peter Michael, their Sauvignon Blanc, I bought a few bottles. It was $52 per bottle. It was nothing really to write home about, and now it's $62. Well, I stopped buying Peter Michael because they, I don't know, they keep increasing their prices, and not as astronomical. You mentioned, Michael, you mentioned Larkmed. I had this conversation yesterday with Melanie, and she was saying, yeah, I used to love Larkmed and everything, but now they charge $350 per bottle, so I dropped off that list. I cannot do it. That's it. You know, so it's this is exactly the point. And
so what happens is, I think you start going. It took me years to get on the Peter Michael list. I have a wine cellar full of Peter Michael Chardonnay at $100 a bottle. But the reality is, today when I'm going out to replace that wine, I'm buying wines that are $50 and $55 or $45 to replace a bottle that was $100 sitting in the cellar, because I was aging the Chardonnays for 10 years. Today, I'm not aging the whites 10 years. I'm still aging my reds 10 years, but I'm not aging my whites 10 years anymore. That's the difference.
Oh yeah. No, but the value changes. The value of things changes in your head. The values of wines, and it's all in the head. What we're willing to pay. This is it's our perceived value.
Right. And Amber, I go back to what you were saying is, I think that a lot of these wines are, we pretty much open a bottle almost every night, and if we were purchasing $100, $185 bottles, if we were opening them every night, we could be living in a whole different realm, but I think when you're buying that $185 bottle, you're anticipating opening that for something special. And that doesn't need to be a major event. It's just not, a Tuesday night, as you said.
It can be Tuesday night, but it cannot be the friends who need a cube of ice in a Chardonnay.
Right.
So the good reason, the good reason to open good bottle of wine can happen any day of the week.
Right.
So I have friends, like I have my friend Stefano. If he would say I'm coming over on Tuesday, no problem.
Right.
No limits in the cellar. But I know who's coming over. When my mother-in-law comes over, it's not. No, nothing wrong with her. I love her, but she just doesn't like.
Your wife really better not be listening to this.
But seriously, no. But no, seriously, I love her, but she doesn't like wine. She drinks tequila. So wine, I won't waste wine on her. It's very simple. I'll pour her whatever best tequila I have, but she doesn't appreciate wine that much, so why bother? So it's that simple.
All right. Well, I don't know if we really covered. I kind of went around in a big circle there, so I don't really know if we covered. But it was a fun conversation. But I don't know. Is there any last statements that you guys want to say about purchasing wine at a specific price, and what you think about it before we go to my favorite part, the riddle?
Yes, let me. I just have one thought. Is that if you have a sense of adventure, and let's say that you're, and for myself, I'm a Cab Sauv person or a Cab Franc person, but if you have a sense of adventure, you can go get the same enjoyment that a $200 bottle from Napa gives you from a $75 bottle from Chile, or a $50 bottle from Spain, or a $30, $40 bottle from Italy, if you have a sense of adventure. If you are just locked and loaded into Cab Sauv, you're not going to be able to see the value proposition in whole. And I think that's why I mix up, the Sierra Foothills, Napa, Sonoma, Lodi, Livermore, Central Coast in writing about wines, because it gives people an opportunity to expand their horizons. So that's my final comment.
Right. Amber, final comment?
Part of the conversation in that text was that I think that I need to, it's really actually quite hard to buy wine where I'm located that isn't California wine.
Right.
All the stuff that we get is pretty poor. And so I wanted to expand more and get more European wines. I enjoy European. Every time I'm in Europe, I have a ball, and I love the wine there. And I would definitely say that Italian wine is my favorite. But coming back to California, there's another whole thing with how wines from elsewhere are blocked. You cannot get them. I can't basically get them. Our friends at Topchin Vino, they were frustrated because they couldn't get wines, and they started importing wines themselves so that they could get more interesting, more unique wines. And I have to say that with the prices that are coming back, I have to add some of the more unique wines from elsewhere to get the value.
I agree. Being in California, people think you can have all this wine. Well, we can have a lot of California wine, but it's, there's some big walls, I think, outside of the California border that don't like bringing in other stuff. I have a much easier time on the East Coast getting those wines than I do in California. No.
And, what you do get is from either Trader Joe's or Cost Plus World Market. And other than that, even the nice wine shops, they don't really carry very much. And it's just the same old humdrum, boring stuff. I mean, you really have to go to a specialist wine shop if you want those good European wines. I see Jim, he's opening all of this fantastic French wine. I just want to reach through my screen and feed him with it, every day.
Well, that's the beauty of living in New York. Come on.
Yes.
No, I know. Well, it's New York and Texas seems like they get the best wines.
Listen, we can always arrange a care package. Come on, that's not that difficult.
Amber, well, after this concludes, I'll send you a link to a guy in Pleasanton that has some excellent wines, and he has a wide variety at a reasonable, and he goes reasonable prices.
Okay.
All right.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
All right. So you guys ready for the riddle?
Let's hear it.
All right. I may be young, I may be old. Either way, I've been hung. Your senses, they must be keen, but it is I who must breathe before my personality can be seen. Okay. One more time. I may be young.
If we say if it's wine that's not enough, should it be
What?
particular wine?
No.
If I'm going to say it's wine.
Yeah, it's wine.
Oh, it's just wine. I'm thinking, okay, varietal here.
Yeah.
No, it's wine.
So if I just say wine, is it going to be enough? Or Lori means just very specific variety?
No, not specific. It's wine.
Oh, that was a good one, Lori.
Was it?
Yeah.
I made this one up.
Oh, you go,
Excellent.
girl.
Nice.
Go, girl.
Good job.
I made that one. It's the first one that I've actually made up. All the other ones I've stolen off of the internet. All right, so I'm going to give you guys like one last minute apiece as we go around because we are at that hour mark. So let people know where to find you, anything exciting and interesting that should come up in the near future that you want them to check you out on. Go at it, Michael. You're first because you're big screen on my screen.
Okay, so we were talking about Screaming Eagle earlier. Today I was at a winery that uses Andy Erickson, who used to do Screaming Eagle, and this is up at Amador, and their wines are going for between $29 to $45, but it's not Cabernets, but they're varietals that grow well up in the foothills, and I'll be doing a story on them. They're opening at their wine shop at the end of wine tasting room at the end of August. But there's a guy who makes phenomenal wines, and he's going to blow the socks off of everybody up in Amador. So you're hearing it first. I just had it.
I said
the winery is called Casino Mine Ranch.
All right.
Casino Mine Ranch.
You heard it here first.
Yep.
Yeah.
Get those orders in now before they go up to $5,000.
Yeah.
$34,000.
So anyway, California Wines and Wineries. That's all. Thanks.
All right. Amber?
You can catch me on winetraveleats.com. Check out our latest articles. We're not doing anything. We're kind of in the process of moving right now, which is like taking forever. But hopefully, just check us out. We're always bringing you good stuff from wherever we travel, which is, all over. So there you go.
Thank you. And Anatoly.
Come on, Amber, you're amazing on Instagram. Your pictures are amazing.
They are.
You have to, come on, you have to talk about that. So, yeah, you can find me at talkavino.com or talk-a-vino.com. I have a bunch of things which I need to get out, and unfortunately my blog is a labor of love, so unfortunately the part which pays the bills takes precedence. So there is a bunch of stuff which should come out, and it will. But right now I'm doing my best to keep afloat. So you can find me also on Instagram under my own just name, Anatoly.l, and Tokavino on Twitter.
Awesome. And I would like to thank everybody for joining me tonight for the conversation. I am Lori, owner of Dracena Wines, so you can find our wines at dracenawines.com and on social media for blog and the podcast at exploringthewineglass.com. And on the social medias under both of those channels. So it is summer, so I am getting to spend a little bit more time writing the blog and trying to get ahead. And looking forward, I finally got to write my blog post about Locations Wines, so that will be coming out soon. So thank you guys for joining, and I hope you all have a wonderful Thursday night. Mike has told me he needs wine tonight, so I don't know what happened at work, but there's going to be wine in my glass soon. So,
Amber, the wine never made it to your glass.
yeah. I think David came in and she did the no, I'm talking.
I did.
Instead of doing, come on.
Well, it's still early for us. Anatoly. So,
of course.
So,
I know.
I'm sure there'll be something in that glass in a few minutes.
As soon as I get done, I'm gonna race down to the cellar and open me up a bottle if David hasn't already done that.
I'm pretty sure he has. I bet money he has.
He's ready. Yeah, he's waiting.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for
Good
joining.
conversation, guys.
And see you. Yes, wonderful conversation. And see you next month on the next Wine Riders Wrap Up.
Thank you
Sláinte.
so much for the invitation.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Lori.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
This has been another episode of Exploring the Wine Glass. Thanks for listening. If you have suggestions on what topics you would like me to discuss, please reach out on social media. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook as Exploring the Wine Glass. I'm also on LinkedIn as Lori Hoyt-Budd. Of course, you can always email me at exploringthewineglass@gmail.com. If you enjoyed our podcast, please rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcast catcher to help others find me more easily. Until next week, Sláinte.